In this lesson, we're going to set up the functionality to allow our player to interact with the world. Alright, so I want to be able to allow my player to pick up an item in the scene, and then I want them to take that item to another and have it affect. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up two objects, and I'm going to set them up as blueprint objects just for right now. It's not absolutely necessary, but we'll go ahead and do it that way. The first thing that I want to do is I want to go to my props. Let's actually create our blueprint first. Let's do that. So let's go ahead and go to our blueprints folder. We'll go to new blueprint, and I'm going to make this an actor blueprint, and we're going to call this BP_pickaxe. Hit enter. Double click on that, and then we're going to go to the components mode, and we're going to add the static mesh of the pickaxe. So let's go back to our content browser, go to props, select the pickaxe from the content browser, and then go back to your blueprint of the pickaxe, and you're going to add component, skeletal mesh, and you should see pickaxe mesh. Go ahead and select that, and then we'll call this pickaxe. Okay, and hit enter. And then with that, that should be everything that we need. We don't necessarily need to put a collider or a volume on this, so everything is good from here. Now, we're going to leave everything else alone. Now, you could add some functionality to this if you wanted to. Perhaps if the player is hovering over this material, maybe the material of the pickaxe kind of glows or something like that, letting us know that we can interact with it. But we're not going to get into that because that could really take us outside of the scope of the course. So we're going to leave it just the way it is. We need to make sure that we compile and save. Then we're going to do one more. We're going to go to DT Blueprints. We're going to create a new one. And this one we're going to do another actor, and we're going to call this BP_barrel. So I'm just kind of thinking, what if we wanted to open up a barrel or something like that? Perhaps it's some sort of puzzle. We'll double click on that, and let's go to our components. Actually, let's go to our props first, and let's select the barrel mesh. Then we'll go back to our blueprint, and we'll add that static mesh, barrel mesh, as a component. We'll just call that barrel. And then we'll come in and we will set this up. I think everything is good where it's sitting. Yeah, we're good. Go ahead and compile and save. And again, we're just setting this up as a blueprint in case you wanted to add some interactivity to it. Just kind of showing you how we'll deal with that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set my barrel in my scene here. So let's say that I wanted to drop this into the scene, maybe right here. Or actually, let's go ahead and bring it right over here. And we'll put these together so that way we can just make this go a lot faster. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the pickaxe. And actually, I brought in the barrel prop. Sorry about that. Let's delete that. Let's grab our blueprint barrel. There we go. And then also the blueprint pickaxe. We'll set that right up there. And then I'm going to rotate it into position. And maybe kind of offset that, something like that. There we go. Okay, so now we've got that set in place. And now what we need to do is go ahead and create the blueprint for our character to be able to interact with these objects. So to do that, let's go ahead and go to our character. And we have our movement all set up. Let's go ahead and create a new event that is going to be our interact key. So I'm going to use the F key. So let's right click and let's do a search for F, and there's the F key event. Once that's pressed, we want it to cast out a line or array, and we want it to trace to see what object it's actually hitting. And so I'm going to left click and drag out from the pressed, and we're going to type in trace. And you can see that we get all kinds of different trace events that we can use. So I want to go ahead and use the single line trace by channel. And then you'll notice here that we have lots of different properties and parameters. So we have the start and end. Let's go ahead and talk about how to set that up. What does it do exactly? Well, it needs to know where it's going to start the line, and it needs to know where to end the line. So to start the line, we want it to start where the camera is with the player. And so just to make that easy, we'll go ahead and we'll grab the FP, the first person camera object that is on our player, and we're going to drag that in. Now we'll drop that, and it's going to give us two options, get or set. We just want to get the variable. So we're going to drop that, and it should look just like this. So we don't want to set anything about that variable. Okay. Now that this object variable is in, we need to go ahead and get its location, its world location. So I'm going to left click and drag off of that, and we're going to say get world, and you'll see world location. Okay, and that's going to be our start. So we're just going to drop that right up into the start there. All right, that's one part of it. Let's go ahead and move this out a little bit more there. Now what I need to do is I need to get the end point of that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to drag off of this, and we're going to say, let's get the forward vector of this camera. So which face is facing forward? That's going to be where the player is looking. And so we're going to get that. Now we need to add on top of the world location. And so we also need to tell it how long to send out the line. So how far out in front of this location should it be? And so what we're going to do is we're going to drag off of this, and I'm going to type in multiply, and you're going to get this vector, and you're going to see vector times float and vector times vector. I'm going to set this to vector times float, because what this will allow me to do is it will allow me to add in a vector, which is our forward vector, and then I can multiply that by a value. So how far out do I want this to cast? A good value might be something like, let's say 500. And let's try that one more time, 500. And then we need to add that to the position of the start position here. So we need to add that to this vector. So we're going to go ahead and drag off of this one, and I'm going to type in add, and you'll see vector plus vector. And so we have two vectors that need to be added together, so that's why we use the vector plus vector. So then we'll take this one, and we'll plug that into the bottom here. And so what you've multiplied should start at the top. This will be at the bottom. It's going to add those together, and then we're going to plug that into the end. Now we want to be able to see this in action, so I'm going to set my trace channel to camera, and then I'm going to trace complex, so that way I can see it. And then we're going to debug this, so that way we can see it right inside of the viewport. And so we're going to set this to persistent, and then we'll make sure that ignore self is turned on. All right, so let's go ahead and see what this looks like just for right now. Let's go ahead and compile this and save it. Let's go into our level, and if we hit play, all we have to do is simply hit the F key, and you'll see that we're getting these rays that come out. So this is a way that we can easily test to see if we're touching an item. So in the next lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to continue on with this, and we're going to create the interactivity for the rays whenever they're cast.